Our next topic is a review of symbiotic relationships. And some of the stuff I'm going to talk about here is just disgusting. Symbiosis is a close relationship that may occur when two organisms of different species live together. In commensal and parasitism, the larger organism is called the host. Some of it's kind of cool. I'm not trying to say all of it's disgusting, but anyhow, you'll get the message here in just a minute. Mutualism is a relationship in which both organisms benefit from the association. Mutualistic relationships often help organisms obtain food or avoid predation. One of the things that is discussed here is that the legume root soybean has rhizobium bacteria on it that help it obtain water and nutrients from the soil. The lichens are considered to be mutualistic. There is a fungus and either an alga or cyanobacterium that are living together, and these grow on rocks. Remember that the root parts are called the hyphae. Everybody say hyphae. And the body part is called the thallus. These can have different forms. If they are pressed to the rock, they're called crustose. If they're leaf-like, they're foliose, and fruticose are ones that kind of poke up. I've heard a neat story about Lewis and Clark where that when as they were exploring the West, sometimes they would run out of food and they would scrape these lichens and put them and make a soup out of them. I haven't tried that, so check that out before you do it. That's just something I heard. Ants and acacias are mutualistic. This is kind of a weird deal in which the ants live off of nectaries and Beltian bodies, but at the same time they will go and cut rings around neighboring plants to keep them from shading their plant. It's kind of an interesting deal. All right, here's where it starts getting gross pretty quick. This is not so bad here. Commensalism is where one species benefits and the other one really isn't harmed. Barnacles on whales, remoras on sharks, orchids in trees. Okay, we're good. Here's where we get to the nasty stuff. Parasites. One derives nourishment from the other, the host. Remember that viruses are obligate parasites. They require a cell to live in, otherwise they're dead. Viruses are the dead. Okay, let's talk about Plasmodium for just a few minutes. And this is the Anopheles is what transmits this malaria. One of the number one worldwide killers, by the way. So, interesting. Mosquito control is it makes heartworms. It's not the same one, but mosquitoes carry heartworms to animals, and thank goodness we don't get those. That's gross too. Listen to this. In the gut of a female Anopheles mosquito, gametes fuse and the zygote undergoes many divisions to produce sporozoites, which migrate to her salivary gland. When the mosquito bites a human, the sporozoites pass from the mosquito salivary glands into the bloodstream and then the liver of the host. Asexual spores, merozoites produced in liver cells, enter the bloodstream and then the red blood cells where they feed as trophozoites. When the red blood cells rupture, merozoites invade and reproduce asexually inside new red blood cells. Merozoites and toxins pour into the bloodstreams when the red blood cells rupture. So the destruction of red blood cells, these toxins, I'm sure that is what creates the fever associated with malaria. Interesting in that word derivation, malaria, bad air, malaria. Back in the day, people thought that you got sick because there was a stinking smell from the swamp. Well, that didn't make anything better, but it was the mosquitoes that were the culprit. Some merozoites become gametocytes, which enter the bloodstream. If taken up by a mosquito, they become gametes. So there are male and female gametocytes. This is all disgusting. Tapeworms have a scolex or head with these hooks that hook into the body, and proglottids. This is so nasty because these can actually burrow into the cyst in the muscle, particularly in pork. And so that's why we wig out about eating raw pork. Ugh. Here's another one, schistosoma. The blood fluke has two hosts. Humans are the primary host and snails are the secondary host. So wading in water that has these larvae in it, they penetrate the skin. There are ciliated larvae, that Myristidia, that enter the snail, and then the snail develops a larva called a cercaria that breaks out and forms sporocysts, which escape the snail and enter the water. I don't even like reading this. This is nasty. Ugh. So especially in third world countries where feces is used as green fertilization, this is not a good idea, kids. Trichinella is a parasitic roundworm that causes the disease trichinosis. This is in cysts and muscles, and so one of the things that I've heard before is that as these encyst in muscle, it will create meat that has a grainy appearance to it, and I mean humpy. Anyhow, the hookworm, Nicator americanus, the American killer, and I shouldn't make fun of this. Anyhow, back in the day, people had chickens and cows and goats in their yard, and they were dodging piles of stuff as they were walking, but invariably people would get these hookworms, and it goes through your body and then has this extended life cycle in the body and passes out through feces. Anyhow, it's basically what it comes down to is if it has to do with feces, it's good to wash your hands and everything after this. Maybe wear gloves or something. Anyhow, that is a review of symbiotic relationships. I hope your life was enriched.